Okay, it is now 5:30 p.m. and I call to order the Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the May 9, 2024 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the room. Ms. Dibbert, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Hawley.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Present.
Mrs. Albers.
Present.
Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Ms. Maudlin has given prior notice that she will be arriving late, and her absence is excused. Mr. Helinski.
Here.
Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Durgans.
Present.
Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. The consent agenda to be approved is as follows. Items numbers 3.1 through 3.8. This is the consent agenda is published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Okay, special recognition. Item 4.1, Ms. Val Kamelka and Ms. Deanna Hirschman will present winners in the Nebraska Educational Technology Association's Spring Conference Student Competition.
Good evening. I'm Deanna Hirschman, Integration Specialist at Gates and Stolly Park.
I'm Valerie Kamelka, Integration Specialist at Seedling Mile and Dodge.
And we had students who participated in the student contest at the Nebraska Educational Technology Association. They hold their spring conference each year in March, and one of the features of the conference is a student technology contest. My student, Sadie Moritz, is a fourth grader, and she's being honored tonight for placing first in the still image category. We had a photography club that I held in the fall and had about 28 students that were involved. And students took pictures and many different pictures and then used special effects with iPads to change their photos how they wanted, and then they were able to choose their favorite photo, and then I submitted photos to the contest and was able to have one winner, and that offered a chance for me to attend the conference as well. So that was pretty exciting. And so Sadie is with us here tonight.
My student that won, it was a first grader, and she won first place for a video. She drew a picture in an app on the computer and then put it into another app and recorded a video introducing herself. She's a second language student and did very little talking, so she introduced herself through the app on a video. And she did not make it tonight. But Sadie, come on up.
Sadie, you get to come right up here front and center. We get to award you this certificate and shake your hand. Congratulations, nice work. You get to come over here and shake Ms. McFarland's hand, and then you get to take a picture.
All right, there we go. Perfect. I was gonna say, if you want to get a picture, snap a photo.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Wonderful. Okay, item number 4.2, Miss Cindy Wells recognizes Anaya Roberts as the first 2024 Girls State Wrestling Champion.
Hi, my name is Jeff Evans. I'm the coach of Grand Island Girls Wrestling, and along with Anaya winning the state championship, the girls became this week the first Hall of Fame girls team in the NSWCA wrestling. So prior to the NSAA, they had the NSWCA here in the state of Nebraska as the girls, I guess you would say, prelude to the NSAA for state championships. And they had 3 of those. And this year was our first ever girls dual state championship. And so we won that. Anaya is part of a team that over the last 3 years has gone 33-0 in duals. We've never lost. And we've won 30-some tournaments and won districts. And thank you, Mr. Fisher, for being there, being part of districts this year and conference. Obviously, we would like to bring home the larger trophy for the state championship this year, and we just missed out on that. But to relieve me this year, though, Matt Hernandez will be the next head coach here at GIPS, and so he's going to do an excellent job. Worked a lot with the girls last year, and especially with Anaya. We did bring home one championship, though, from state, and that's Anaya Roberts, our first ever girls state champion in girls wrestling here in GI. So here's Anaya.
Hi, I'm Anaya Roberts. I don't know what to say. Just thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to GIPS. And yeah.
That's right.
All right, come on up here, all of you. So, congratulations to you, and congratulations, coaches.
All right. Yep. All right. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Hank, I have a question. Not for you, for her.
Your request to speak, not your mic.
That was funny.
Before we move on, just would like to note Coach Evans is unfortunately going to be moving away. He's done a great job getting our girls wrestling program up and running it at the level that it's at. And so we appreciate all of the time and effort and work that you put into that. So thank you.
Right, I don't see, is Cindy Wells here? It's okay, all right. Yes, Miss Albers.
So, Anaya, you're not going to get off the hook that easy. So would you come back up to the microphone, please? So I have to tell you, girls wrestling has just fascinated me, and I didn't think I liked wrestling until I started watching girls wrestling, and it was just, you guys are so scrappy, and it's just a blast to watch. And so Sage McCallum was a friend of mine, and so just watching her go through it, I really learned a lot about it. But I would love to hear about how you started in it, you know, and just how old you were, what grade you were in, and just kind of that process and the history that brought you to where you are today.
So starting in middle school, I was like very athletic, very the tomboy type, and we did not have girls wrestling. Like, we had wrestling, like conjoined wrestling with boys and girls, but then like me and a couple other girls in 7th grade, we actually had a meeting with Mrs. Wells, and we were proposing the idea to start a girls wrestling team at the high school level. And then from there on, you know, in middle school, I didn't do wrestling in middle school, but then my freshman year, when Jeff Evans was coming down, and he decided to take the position. So we actually had a coach to coach girls wrestling, and so that's kind of where it all started. And then so I started my freshman year, and I didn't place, and then last year I placed 4th, and then this year I was able to be his champion.
All right, well, thank you. Congratulations again. That's wonderful. Okay, item number 4.3, Ms. Cindy Wells recognizing the National Powerlifting Qualifiers. And I guess Coach Evans will do that. All right. Okay, good. Thank you, Coach Doyle.
Yeah, you betcha. Pat Doyle, head strength and conditioning coach and head powerlifting coach at senior high. This is Mallory Olmstead. She's my assistant coach. This is her first year actually at GIPS as well. And then we'll go left to right. Giselle Lara right here. Angel Pena Francisco right here. Matthew Hernandez. Different Matthew Hernandez than the wrestling coach. And Hunter Christensen here. And you can kind of see how they placed up on the screen there. And then we have 2 more that unfortunately couldn't make it because they had to work. But very similar to girls wrestling, this is only our really 3rd-ish, 4th year of doing this, the powerlifting thing. And I think our first year I had 5 kids that just kind of approached me, kind of like I did with wrestling. Hey, we want to do powerlifting, go to a couple meets. Okay, cool. So I figured it out, and then 3 or 4 years later, we got over 50 to 60 kids that we have in the program now. And this was obviously the first year we've ever gone to nationals. And I didn't really know the extent of it and how good some of our kids actually were. I didn't even propose the idea of going to nationals until we had kids just winning meets left and right. These 2 are both state champions this year, by the way, as well. And you can obviously see we did good at the national level too. So next year it's just how can we grow and how can we do it even better. Do you have anything you want to add? Hunter broke records. Oh, Hunter's a world record holder, yeah, too. And people are like, how did he get 4th place but break 2 world records? Well, he's only 15 years old. So he was lifting in a division that was 2 years older than him. And still broke 2 world records for his age group, but got 4th in the division higher than him. So next year he'll be in a different age division, and hopefully he'll break a couple more world records, and he'll be a world record holder in 2 different age divisions. Right? So very, very, very excited for our future. We have a lot of dedicated kids. We have a lot of fun. We work really hard year round. Yeah, that's about all I have really. Unless any of you guys want to talk. No words. No words. Yeah, Baton Rouge, Louisiana is where we went to, by the way. So it was a really fun trip. We got to do a lot of cool things.
All right, congratulations, Coach. We'll have you guys come on up here. Just in case you can't read what's on the screen, I'll read these. So Hunter, in recognition of National Powerlifting Qualifier, 4th overall to world records. And Angel, top 60 finisher. So Angel's not here. Angel, sorry. Matthew, all right, also top 60 finisher. Congratulations. And Zell, 7th overall. Congratulations. Jesse really had to work, so. Okay. And one of Rayleigh was 22nd overall, and Jesse was 17th overall. So really, when you think about it, very, very outstanding finishes. So, congratulations.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Great job. Congratulations, everybody.
Fire away.
So, not to shock you guys, but I have done old lady powerlifting. I've done 3 powerlifting competitions, and I have to tell you, I knew nothing about it, and I just wanted to challenge myself about 18 months ago, and I thought, I'm going to train for this. You lift so heavy, even old ladies lift so heavy, and then you go out and you're on the platform for like 1 minute, and you have to do everything correct. So even when your heart is pounding and you're sweating your mind out, and you still have to do everything correct. You have to really keep your composure. And I'm just so ridiculously proud of you guys, because I have a very small bit of experience with it, but I'm super interested in what your lifts were and how heavy they were. So can we hear that?
One by one,
Yeah.
Give him a ballpark. Give him a ballpark.
Okay, I'd say
Outrageous amount.
Matthew squatted about 405, right?
Like 600.
He's about a 400-pound squatter. I think you ended up getting 285, 285 maybe. Okay, Angel, what'd you squat?
380, I think.
380, and then Hunter was a 567. Over 600-pound deadlifter. I think you ended up lifting 315, 320.
1,400.
Yeah. He's a funny guy.
What was it, like 465, 465?
Upper 400s, mid 400s. And these two had the toughest weight class. They had over 100 kids in their weight class.
They were in the
So-
same weight class, biggest weight class there. Angel PR'd, I think, on every single lift at nationals, though. That was good.
And yeah, you talk about like the difficulty of like, it's not just walk up and squat. Like there's different technical difficulties that you have to pass in order to get like a successful lift. And then talk about lights on you, cameras on you. There's like a dude in a pirate outfit that's walking around like emceeing the whole thing, just screaming. There's music blaring. There's people staring at you. So it's a very nerve-wracking experience. So just like the dedication and time that these kids put into it and the prepping for that is pretty remarkable actually. And the fact that kids don't just absolutely poop their pants up on like the platform is pretty incredible too. But a lot of extremely strong kids.
And so you have three, unless it's different, you have three judges watching you. And so, and then when you do your lift, like you squat, if you don't get low enough, I mean, you stand up and you go and you look for the lights, and you are just praying that you get at least 2 white lights. I
Yeah,
think
it's
they're
like
white.
5 seconds of
Yeah.
like the highest anxiety you've ever had.
Yeah, seriously. And I've had the 3 red checks. I just want you to know that. Yes.
heartbreaking.
And I did not cry, but I almost cried. Yes. So, but I'm so glad I had that experience, because I can so understand what it was that you guys, how you prepared for it and what you went through. And it's just awe-inspiring to me. So just well done. Keep doing it. Keep lifting. You can be old man and women lifters later.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Hawley.
So, really quickly, so Matthew, I know you. Every time you stick around, that'd be great. But Coach, can you talk about the program? So we were just discussing this a little bit ago. This is not an NSAA sporting program, is it? Is this a club sport? Is this sanctioned by the state? How does this work?
Yeah, technically it's still a club. I'm a board member for the Nebraska Strength Coaches Organization, and we are in the process of building like a relationship with the NSAA for strength and conditioning, but also trying to get powerlifting as like a sanctioned sport. So we're kind of in the process. We had a couple Zoom meetings last week about it. So we're in the process of building 2 different relationships with the NSAA in terms of that.
And you're seeing interest from other schools in the state? I mean, I'm sure you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, powerlifting is a growing sport. There's a lot of kids. Most of the meets we go to have 250, 300 kids lifting. And it's like a Saturday, we leave at 5 a.m. and we're usually getting home at 8, 9, 10 p.m. depending on how far we're traveling. And so it's 4, 5, 6 platforms going at once. There's kids everywhere. It makes for a long day, but it's like growing in popularity quite a bit. So.
And one last question: how do you guys fund this? Is it self-funded?
We fundraise everything.
Fundraise everything.
So we probably fundraise close to $15,000 this year.
Wow.
Just us alone. We do like a raffle. We've done grocery sacking. We're doing an event this summer, and then I set up a web page at the foundation, and we just have private donors that donate. So we put a lot of time, a lot of effort. Our kids go out and do community service and different things to try and raise money, because like you have to pay your own entry fees. We have to pay our own travel. We have to pay our own uniforms. We have to pay equipment. Like traveling to Baton Rouge, we had flights, like travel, food. Like it was pretty expensive in the long run. So it was like we worked pretty hard to raise a ton of money.
Yeah, fantastic. Congratulations to all of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5, request to address the board. I don't believe we have any tonight. Okay, item number 6, information item 6.1, Ms. Carrie Hooker Leap, presenting summation of the staff giving grants and scholarships.
I gotta wait for my Vanna. First time you'll see that from Mr. Petch.
This is the first.
It is, thank you. I'm just gonna give a quick wrap-up of what the foundation did for the school year. As you can see here from my Vanna, Mr. Petch, you can see that we gave 190 scholarships to 98 of our students in a total of $415,518. Those are spectacular numbers by any stretch of the imagination. It's an opportunity for us, not just to give scholarships, but we had 3 receptions, and several of you attended the receptions, but it's an opportunity for the students to meet their donor. They get to sit down, they get to talk to them. The donor's able to tell them why they set the scholarship up. Could it be that they want to remember, memorialize, or honor a loved one? Not only that, then your student gets to say thank you in advance. I'm here in person, I want to say thank you, and I want to tell you what I'm going to do, in the future. So we're going to leave this out. We're not going to make Mr. Petch hold it all night, but it has each and every scholarship, each and every recipient on there. I'll leave it out in the hallway so you can look at it. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're always excited just to be a small part of each and every student's success. We're happy to see those students walk across the stage on Sunday and be able to say congratulations, and we're part of where they're going in the future. Of course, we don't just give scholarships to students. We are currently accepting applications for our Dr. Eugene Miller Professional Development Grant. That is a grant that we provide to the teachers. Could be a teacher, a staff member, a counselor, and if they're trying to further their education, we'll look at that application and we can provide them up to $1,000. And that'll close down May 22nd. We closed our staff giving campaign this year, and just yesterday we delivered t-shirts to all the people that received those, and we were super excited about it. I'm not going to share numbers because I'm going to ask you to come Monday night to our event that's going to be held at Memorial Stadium on the Jack Martin Field. That's where we'll be able to put on the big Jumbotron, all the numbers, and give the thanks to everybody that worked so hard. It's also an opportunity, if you want to come, you get to meet Cheryl and Doug Jensen, hear them speak. If you don't know Cheryl and Doug, they were teachers since involved in Grand Island Public Schools since 1971. Cheryl was a perceptual motor specialist and elementary PE teacher, and then Doug was a speech and language pathologist, program coordinator for special education, as well as he retired as one of the administrators at Grand Island Senior High. I want to share the quote, why they did what they did. And they provided us with $5,000, and that is a challenge to individuals that are first-time donors or you're increasing your donation. And Doug said, it is important to do the things that bring you joy, and supporting innovative teachers and their students brings us joy. Now, I recommend that you come, not just to see the numbers, but to meet them, because they are super special people. Finally, it is Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week here at GIPS. So I want to give you a little detail about our program, Teacher of the Year. We are just finalizing the nominations. This year, we received online 1,608 nominations. That's 442 staff administrators or teachers that individually received a nomination. One of the things that we wanted to do this year, and the reason we went online, is that we're able to provide those teachers, as they go off on the summer, their nominations. They can read through those nominations and kind of get a feeling why they are so loved and cared for by their students and by the public, so anybody can nominate. All in all, 2023-2024 for the foundation was an exceptional year. We are extremely proud of what we do. We're extremely happy to be part of the success of the students, and we're extremely happy to be in a collaboration with GIPS. So, any questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, item number 6.2, Nutrition Services Fund Debt Payoff, Mr. Virgil Harden and Mr. Paul Grieger.
Well, I just want y'all to know I deadlift 23 pounds. It's a PR, so It's a little less than the students, but probably appropriately so, since I don't practice or try at all. So, just a little bit of levity there. So, with COVID, you all remember that we had a large influx of federal money coming in because the feds decided that during that time that we would provide free meals to everyone. And so, during that time period, we were still just as efficient as we always are in producing meals. And so we were able to bank a little bit more money what now the federal government rules say that you can have in your nutrition services fund. And so our current fund balance really at the beginning of this school year was just right at $3 million. And we received a letter from the Nebraska Department of Ed saying, well, you really shouldn't have more than about 2.2. So we have about $800,000 that they suggest that we come up with a plan for divesting of. And so one of those items is to go ahead and pay off our debt that we have in the Nutrition Service Fund. Over the years, we'd financed equipment. We have a dishwasher that's literally a $250,000 dishwasher in this building sitting in the back. And so just about a year ago, 2022, we financed the purchase of that after the old one got its 10-year end-of-life cycle kind of thing. So that's the background story. My esteemed colleague, Paul Grieger from D.A. Davidson, is here, and he's going to go through, we have some, handouts, or we have the attachments, I guess, and he'd be happy to answer any questions, but just giving you, the 30,000-foot view on this. First attachment, well, I guess it's the 2018A payoff. And so the way this will work is basically presenting it this evening. Next month, we'd ask you to approve a resolution calling for the recall of, and Paul can talk more about that detail, so I'll let him say it because it'll be right, and he won't have to correct what I was going to say. And so there's three pieces, basically, of debt that we have. The 2018A, and there's $63,000 and some change there that we're going to pay off. And then if you would go to the 2018B, we have just over $76,000 worth of debt. And then the 2022 series, which was the dishwasher, we have just short of $145,000 that we're going to pay off. So with that kind of as a background, I'll turn it over to Paul. You can talk about the resolution and maybe the process, and then we can do any questions you might have.
Thank you, Virgil. Good evening. Thanks for having me out this evening. Paul Grieger with D.A. Davidson. The three financings that Virgil laid out, the 2018A, 2018B, and then the Series 22, are all up for early redemption is the term we use with bonds, but since they're lease purchases, we're going to prepay them. It's a different kind of way of thinking about it. I don't have a lot to say since Virgil just went through everything that we were going to talk about, including the numbers. So what you have really for discussion is just the concept of using just under $300,000 to take out these debt obligations. And as has been our practice and your practice, we present these things for first to the F&F committee, then to the board, and then following month, if desired, the board can consider for action. So we provided call resolutions and numbers to Virgil and his team, maybe a month ago or so. And it would be our expectation, if the board wanted to follow through with this, that it would be on the agenda next month for an action item. And then the numbers that you saw all assumed that that the action would be approved at the June meeting, and then we would transfer funds on or about July 15th. So pretty straightforward, but if there's any questions about how that works or anything, I'd do my best to answer them.
Mr. Sykes.
My question isn't for you, Virgil. Where are you guys at in process on the remaining 500,000 of the 800,000 excess? If I'm understanding what you communicated correctly, there's still some there.
Yeah, we covered the remaining items with the F&F committee.
Got it.
And so those are in process. Some of it is just anticipated increase in cost of doing business with what we've done with our salaries and benefits, increase in food prices. Some of it's in further investment in capital equipment.
we tend to use our stuff for 40 years, and so if it lasts that long kind of thing. And so we're just going to beef up and kind of accelerate the replacement of that equipment. And so Chris Spellman, the director of the Nutrition Services Program, has a whole plan laid out. And she put it in writing, sent it to NDE, and they have approved it. So this is basically the first official step that we have to take because it's a debt related, and obviously we need your authority to do what we're asking to do.
Perfect. I wanted everybody to hear that. So that's perfect.
I appreciate
so, thanks.
that. Yeah. And so, of course, the end goal is to have this fully taken care of on or before August 31st, so it's off of our financial at the end of the year, so it's not a debt on the financials. So that's an important milestone, I guess.
Further questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, Paul.
I think he wants to stay for the deadlift face-off between Josh and Sykes.
I learned more about Mrs. Albers tonight than I was prepared to.
She's a little scary.
I am going to take the opportunity to get home early. My wife is at golf league, and my 11-year-old is having his first night at home alone. So I thought I'd FaceTime him from the car and make sure he hasn't burned the place down. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, item number 6.3, the NWEA MAP Growth Renewal. Dr. Tony, well, it said Dr. Tony Palmer, but I see Dr. Dahl coming.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education and Mr. Fisher. Welcome. Pursuant to our BOE policy of expenditures greater than $35,000, I'm here to talk about one expenditure that falls under that. I wish that Virgil would have made this presentation because it does fall in line with things that decreased after COVID, but I apologize that Virgil's unable. So we're going to be talking about MAP spending, which is one of our assessments in our balanced assessment system that's required by Rule 10. It's something that we currently use for grade levels K through 5. We used to use it for grades K through 8, but we also started using AIMSweb this past year. It's a cheaper cost, and I'm not here to refer to the AIMSweb discussion because it falls under the threshold, but just about MAP. Second, you'll notice a couple of little red checks there on the 9th grade. I would mention, since we're talking about our district's assessment, and my role covers that the high school rolled away from or rolled back from using the pre-ACT 8-9 this past year. So that's an expenditure we won't be seeing next school year, so it's a savings. But again, it falls way under the threshold, so it's not needed to be discussed. So with regard to MAP, we give MAP in the fall and the winter in both math and ELA. In math, but in ELA we give the DIBELS test. Dr. Bills, when she was with our district, presented a great deal on DIBELS and the work with that. At the end of the year we give NSCAS and we also give DIBELS. You'll notice that we don't give MAP a second time. We don't need to because NSCAS provides the RIT scores that can show students' progress. And again, at the middle school, as I mentioned, we have the AIMSweb testing, which concludes with NSCAS, and we give AIMSweb at the middle school after NSCAS because it's a lighter test. Students appreciate it, and the middle school, and possibly in the future, even the 9th grade of the high school, appreciates that progress monitoring. So that might be a future presentation, maybe not even done by me. So I'm here to make a small request for funds, so I want to give you the complete information. The MAP licenses cost $12.50 per student. Does not matter if you use them once for a student or 3 times. If you take math, science, ELA, you can take as many MAP suite tests as you want, but the same license price is there. And you notice the 2 blue areas in the current school year, the state was paying for our MAP testing because that was just a little bit of a pre-COVID gift, which went away. And so next year the state's stopping that. The state may also have a new testing system in 14 months, and so we'll wait and see. So all of that cost will be district cost next year. And so the net amount, and I would mention, if you were reading the needs analysis, you'll see a slightly different number for K through 2, and I'll explain that in a second, very briefly. But so we always were paying the K through 2 cost for testing, which is about $29,000, and this year we're picking up the state's cost for grades 3 through 5. And the reason you see a slightly smaller number, I think 16,800, is that, and this is just going to be confusing, but let me just say it because we want to be clear on numbers. The second grade MAP test is covered by a different MAP suite test, and so it wasn't included on here, but it's listed. The final total cost is still $58,000, the same as the needs analysis, but we slightly, because we had 2 different tests being represented, so we just wrote about one of the tests on here, and my apologies for that. If needed, Dr. Palmer and I can edit it, but it's again a very minor detail. So the net ask is for the increase of the state roll, but we're asking for all of the MAP testing because that's a cost that we carry forward to next year. Today is info, a month from now is action. So I just invite you to, if you have questions now, we'd be happy to answer, or we can answer next month.
Mr. Hawley.
Obviously, with us taking the cost of this back over, it's just coming from the general fund, is that? Yep.
General assessment, yes.
And then, any ideas, so you're saying the state possibly will have a new testing platform in the next calendar year, the next school year after that?
They currently have an RFP out to 3 testing vendors that they've approved through a process, and they're going through an evaluation, and they have a lot of input from districts. And when we're asked, we'll give more input, but we've already done as much as we can to assist.
And assuming we'll end up absorbing the cost of that as well going forward, so we're just...
It's very hard with the state to predict the future,
Okay.
but because it's my job to listen on the railroad, so to speak, the railroad line, it appears that similar to Mr. Hardin's presentation, we're moving away from more and more things that were state funded or state gifted. So I certainly don't want to assure this board of this, but I would be surprised if we found the state reversing course when it's asking us to pay for something.
Okay.
So, I mean, we'll find out a year from now, and if you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, we don't have a gift horse right now. but we'd hope to get one.
Thanks, Dr. Dahl.
You're most welcome.
Ms. Albers.
That was a question we talked about in L4L too, was just the cost, and really the state didn't give any warning that we were going to have to take these costs on, not at least not very much warning. But then also there was some thought that NDE was having financial constraints as well, and so they're just feeling it like we are all feeling it, and they probably just needed to take some expense off of their plate as well.
Correct. One thing I'd add as both an advisement to this board, but also to the L4L team and to my successor in this position, in this role. If, like currently, the state funds the NSCAS 3 times a year and pays for it. I was just doing an external review in North Platte last week and had the chance, they do NSCAS 3 times a year, so they don't, this is a cost that they wouldn't be having to talk about with their board because they're using the NSCAS platform. I would say that, those days we're at the end of this cycle, we're not at the beginning of this cycle. But if there would be the opportunity with the state to consider state-funded testing, it'd be worthwhile for us to consider things. We're again at the end of a multi-year process with NSCAS that was positive at some points and had some significant speed bumps that the state worked through. So a lot of districts have had feedback about NSCAS. If again, with a new vendor, they present a new system and the state says that they shoulder the costs of that system X number of times, we would be in good course as a district to consider, is it worth paying for something on our own if there's a comparable product that would be provided. Again, we don't know, we're waiting, but I would say it would be a good advice for us to consider those options when we have them.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Dr. Dahl.
Thank you, everyone.
Item 6.4, the GIPS Science Resource. Dr. Robin Dexter. Mrs. Jennifer Ritter.
Okay, so this is also attached to the board agenda, but I'm going to present kind of where we've been, how we got to where we are, and then Jenny's going to take over and just share the process of how she worked with staff to identify this resource. But the integrated approach to science is very different than what most of our teachers went to school to learn how to teach science, but like it just says, integrates. It's not just biology 1, biology 2, it's integrated science 1, integrated science 2, and integrated science 3. So it was a really big transition for our staff. Anya Kovarubius led most of the transition. She's just brilliant with integrated science and does a lot of work with NDE and nationally. So they adopted integrated science. We're so far ahead that there weren't resources developed, so that our teachers for the last couple of years have been writing curriculum, writing units, assessments, and it's been a rough haul. So we kept looking for resources, and they just weren't out there. And then we had 2 teachers that came to us and said, hey, we want to go to the National Science Conference. We hear that there are going to be some integrated science resources. Jenny also had been researching. Her research really just, we'd have 3 textbooks for one science course, because you'd have to have a little bit of biology, a little bit of physical science, and a little bit of chemistry. So we sent the 3 staff members, and they came back very excited about Cognity science resource. And some of the things that they found is that it really supports EL learners. It's in several different languages. Special education students with special education needs have different ways of accessing. It can be read to students. So just a lot of accommodations and support throughout the resource. They are based in Stockholm, Sweden, and they really started in the resource business with international baccalaureate schools and Department of Defense schools. So when we call them, or email, the rep always responds, now remember, it's this time in Sweden, and it's going to be a little bit before we get back to you. So, but they've been really great to work with, and we are proposing that we purchase the licenses for an online integrated science resource. And there's some research in the needs analysis that I won't go into because it's there. We talked about the equity. Jenny has done an awesome job in negotiating. We started out at $20 per student, and she got it down to $10 per student. And you see the 2004 students, and it's like, that's kind of a weird number. But we padded it a little, but we also looked at how many kids move in, how many kids leave, and we just wanted to make sure that we weren't short. And so for 5 years, it would be $100,200 for the 2004 students at $10 per student. And it would come out of the ELF funds. Dr. Palmer had kind of held back about $300,000 because we knew eventually there were going to be science resources. So we are here tonight for info action because Jenny has set up time this summer. I believe a person's coming all the way from Sweden to help our staff get on board. So it will be info action, and I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to walk you through the process, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Jenny Ritter. I'm the principal at Seedling Mile Elementary and the K-12 science coordinator for the district this year, and then next year I'll be the principal at Kinnicrum. So Cognity is something that I came across at the same time as the teachers came across when they went to NSTA. So we actually both landed on the same resource, not knowing that each other did. So that was really exciting that we were kind of on the same page. So as I've been meeting with teachers this year, at the high school level, asking them their biggest concerns, their biggest needs, resources just kept coming up. So we need a resource that's aligned to the 3-dimensional standards. So we have the disciplinary core ideas, which is like what we had when we were in school: physics, earth science, basically the content. Then we have the cross-cutting concepts, which build a bridge between all those content areas. And then we have the science and engineering practices, which are the specific ways of doing science, like asking questions, developing models, those types of things. That wasn't as hard to find a resource for, but as Dr. Dexter stated, finding a resource that is caught up to our integrated approach, because we all know in real life science doesn't happen in silos, was more difficult. So as she stated, we offer Integrated 1, which is a combination of physical and earth and space science. We offer Integrated 2, which is biology and earth and space science, and then Integrated 3, which is chemistry and earth and space science. So Cognity has all of these courses available as kind of pick and choose units or lessons, and also available as standalone. So if we ever go away from an integrated approach, if we're finding that that's not working, they have standalone courses as well. We're also offering more science courses for credit next year. So environmental science is on the list, so she's really wanting to beef up her course, and they'll have that available for the 24-25 school year as well. The teachers expressed frustration of rewriting units, looking at data, rewriting units and assessments, and then putting them in a complex system called Synergy that allows us to pull heat maps out of it, analyze data, see where our students' weaknesses are, and just redoing that every summer without a resource to pull from. It was a lot of work, and it's super time consuming. So that's where we came up with this need. Another hiccup that we have is that we want to do phenomena-based teaching methods. So basically that would be like, where does a rainbow come from? And then they would explore like the refracted light and all of those types of things. Well, Cognity teaches that same exact way. They use anchoring phenomena, which is also the way ACT tests. So that's important. They have common assessments that are vetted. They have rubrics that are already created on a 4-point scale, which is important as we talk about standards-based learning, and also GPA. And then they have assessment banks that you can, if you don't want to just use their whole common assessment, you can pull items from their assessment bank and build common assessments or formative assessments. So that was all really important. As you all know, we have a high EL population, and so it's available to be translated in 130 languages. It includes picture dictionaries, which is super important. And then the differentiation and accommodations, there's a student view, and the teachers can turn off and on features for the students to provide more or less support according to the student need. So if they want to add in like a tip to a question, like, hey, a tip is to see a chart on page 98. They can leave that tip on, or for some high-flying students, they might turn that tip off and just let them answer that as they can. It also has reading assistance, which is really important. It can have it read to them. And it can also change the speed and the tone of voice and highlight the words as it's reading aloud. And then it has student tools like a note catcher and highlighting and drag and drop features, creating models. It has videos embedded. So just a lot of different techniques that will help them be successful digitally. PLCs are a big focus for our district, so this platform comes with its own heat map if we choose to use it. If we use their common assessments, it will create the heat map for us. So it's taken us a lot of time to put assessments into Synergy and to have those heat maps pulled for us from our technology department, and this platform could potentially do that for us. The only glitch we would have to work through is how that would connect with the grade book. So that is just something to consider. It integrates with our current system, Clever, really easily. Phil Cole met with them this week, and he said it's going to be no problem. It's going to be a breeze to add to our current system. So Cognity is fairly new. As we stated, we're kind of on the cutting edge with the integrated approach, which is a really good place to be, but a bad place when you're looking for resources. However, They have 600,000 students, 30,000 teachers, and in 120 countries. So just because it's new doesn't mean it's not being used widely. They have available, I'm going to add to this because it's coming soon, and they've worked really well with our needs. So they have biology available, chemistry, physics, earth and space, which are all what we need. And like I said, we can pick and pull parts to integrate, but they also have them freestanding. But they're also adding environmental science, which they've pushed up the date for us to be available in July. It wasn't going to be available until September, but I said we probably wouldn't be interested in purchasing unless they could move that date up, and they moved it up. They also have been super flexible, as Dr. Dexter said, with our training dates for our teachers. So their COG days are actually the date that we requested for them to do the training from Stockholm. So they're actually having someone available for us during their major, week of training for their own company, which I thought said a lot about how responsive they are. And then, yes, being flexible with getting them down to $10 a license. They haven't given a district that cost ever before. And so I just stated that other districts look to us to see what we're using, which is true. Lincoln Public Schools have contacted me, Omaha Public Schools have contacted me, Kearney Public Schools. And so I said, we would give them a good reference. And then from time to time, they asked if we could have teacher testimonials. And so we agreed to that. And so they said if we did that combo, they would bring it down to $10. So this slide is just kind of some of the research and the people involved in creating Cognity, if you're interested. So do you have any questions for me?
Ms. Jurgens.
Thank you so much. This is super fascinating and actually really exciting for our students. I forget the language you used as an educator, but basically like learning by story. I feel that's so much more beneficial to almost any learner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So thank you also for advocating for the lower price.
Yes.
Gold star for that.
Yes. In my last district, they called me brass knuckle ritters when I negotiated.
You earned it. That's great.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's not going away.
Deadlifters somehow.
You just said that into a microphone. It's sticking. And then thinking about the training support that our teachers will get, I love that because it feels like that's going to really set them up for success when they go into the classroom in the fall.
Yes.
I would really love a follow-up on this. So, whenever it rolls out, I know obviously fall is way too early, but perhaps, in the winter time or something, just to hear a status update. And also if a couple of teachers could come in and talk about their live experience, I think that would be pretty spectacular. So
that's
thank you.
easy for us to say yes to because neither of us will be in this role. No, I'm kidding. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Sykes.
The 130 languages, is that a part of is the reading assistance, it'll be read back in those 130 languages as well?
That's my understanding. Okay. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you so much for your work. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, item number 6.5, Title 1, Yes We Can Professional Learning. Dr. Tony Palmer.
Good evening, and I am so thankful that Jenny is possibly going to stick around for this.
Oh, I thought you were kidding. Yes, I will.
No, I was not.
Sorry.
Brass Knuckles Ritter. She's got a new name. She's got a new name. And Jessica Schroeder's also here. She's the principal at Howard. The other two principals, Mrs. Valentine and Mrs. McDonald, couldn't make it tonight, so they apologized. But this is really about them. So I'm just going to share with you a request tonight, just provide you with some information, then ask for approval later to approve a purchase agreement of Title I funds to support some professional learning that will occur on August 30th with Solution Tree for 4 of our Title I schools, Conicrum, Howard, Lincoln, and Star. And really this professional learning, the reason we're bringing it to you, one, it does exceed the $50,000 cost, but there's so much that is built within this professional learning that it's really not just benefiting their 4 schools, but it's actually going to be benefiting our entire district, so we're pretty excited about it. When we receive our AQuest data within the AQuest results, it shares with us like there's what's called an ATSI designation, and really what that is saying is that there are certain student groups within your population that they're not showing the expected amount of growth or student proficiency. And if that occurs over a period of time, they designate you as an ATSI school, which means it's a school that's in need of support. You need to pay attention to the learning of what's happening within those subgroups. If that happens for an extended period of time, you become a CSI school, which means you're a school that's really in need of additional technical and financial support to help address the needs of the students that are not performing at that level that we would expect, or that the state is expecting of our students to grow. And so the 4 schools, Star, Lincoln, Conicrum, Howard, both have ATSI designations for a student group with special education, and a couple of them also have designated with students that are designated as EL as well. So part of that process is really evaluating and looking at their data and identifying, okay, what is it that we need to do in order to support the needs of our students? Is it professional learning for our teachers? Is it content knowledge? Is it awareness of instructional strategies? Is it how we run our PLCs? And so, part of that process is looking for what is the right professional learning to support them. And of course, we don't always have capacity to do that within the district. So we often seek alternatives like taking staff to conferences or, bringing people in. And we have a great opportunity. This last spring, Westlawn actually took a team to a Solution Tree, this Yes We Can conference, a workshop. It's a two-day workshop, and what they really focused in, and you can kind of see the outcomes that are in the summary, is focusing on those strategies that build school culture that really believes that all students can succeed. And so we think about the beliefs and behaviors, and although with all good intent, our teachers plan and they teach every day wanting all of their students to succeed, sometimes we don't have the understanding of what those needs are, or the tools or the instructional strategies in order to make that happen. And so part of that is just we have to build that culture of professional growth, but also the expectations that all students can learn. One of the pieces that came out of that really resonated with a team, I went to the conference last week with Dr. Berman and Dr. Libas and a group from WASMR. We went to Utah because we felt like it was really important, if we're asking our schools to engage in this professional learning, we also need to be there to support them in the process. And the statement of, if we are expecting a student to be independent post-graduation, then we need to be doing everything that we can to make sure that they are prepared for that. Well, that's 99% of our students. And so when we look at our data and we see that we're not even, 80%, we really have to reflect and say, what is it that we're doing? What are our beliefs and the behaviors that we have? What are the structures and supports that we have for that learning? What are the essential elements that we need to build within? What are the instructional strategies and so on? So that's part of the reflection. So what we're doing to help support, the principals really examined kind of where they are, what's aligned with the district priorities for focusing in on instruction, professional learning communities, and our positive supports, and just asking for help, like how can we bring this to our staff? And so we have a great opportunity to actually bring Solution Tree to our district, and they'll provide the professional learning for their entire schools. So all 4 schools, all of their staff will get to participate in this professional learning that focuses on the things that they said they deemed really critical for them to help address the learning gaps that they have, and start building in those skills and strategies to address the needs of their students. So the cost, like I said, is that $53,500. That's the first day is really just building in some of that understanding around those core beliefs, and kind of what does that look and sound like, and they'll have some time to do some planning as a staff. But then they also have designated 7 follow-up days. So it's not like a one and done thing. It's we're going to get you set up and started. We're going to establish an implementation plan, and then we're going to come back and help support check in with you, participate in PLCs, do some observations, and then provide some feedback that can help you continue to like adjust and monitor and adjust kind of where you need to go from there. So with that, is there anything else you want to add, Jessica or Jenny? No.
I don't think so either. I love the approach they have, that it's just a mindset that all kids can learn. I think I would just add that.
Yeah. This also aligns really well with where we're headed as a district. And so as far as what we're focusing in on priorities, so, you know, part of our learning when we went to the conference last week was what are those takeaways that they were actually going to be building in now to our professional learning throughout the district. So they'll see some direct alignment and some components that we'll be building in throughout as well. So we're pretty excited about how that can support all schools. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Mr. Sykes.
Question about like it's connected to where the where learning tree, right?
Solution tree.
Solution tree.
Yep.
Excuse me. When they do these trainings, is there any strategy around schools that are approaching that ATSI line of going, hey, even though we're not going to be in that building, we're going to bring some of those people over because you're close to that line to prevent us from being in that category? Is there any?
Well, we kind of have a limit on space for this training with the 4 schools. And so right now we can accommodate the 4 schools, but the whole L4L team's, you know, has been part of the training in some way, shape, or form and can participate as well. So we obviously are going to, you know, pay attention to who those schools are and be building in, like, how do we support you? And is there an opportunity for you to maybe go to the conference, or that we bring them back and kind of continue to support schools that might be close? Because there are probably some that have not been designated, but maybe on that line.
Yeah, I just thought there might be some like little pockets that you would go, you know, 4th and 5th grade here, like,
sure.
you know, where maybe it's not an entire school building, but
Right.
going where you're seeing. So anyways,
Yeah,
just thought
great,
I'd ask.
great point, thank you. Any other questions?
See none.
All right, so I'll be back to ask for approval a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer. Okay, item number 6.6, budget reductions update. Mr. Matt Fisher and Mr. Virgil Harden.
Take it away, boss.
All right. We didn't practice this, so who knows how this will go. In reality, Virgil is going to do most of the real work here. What we wanted to do is just, now that we're at the end of this school year and we're really working pretty heavily on putting together the budget for next year, we know where our state aid numbers are, and we're getting a little bit more of a sense of maybe where valuations, at least in some areas, might be going. So we're really able now to kind of think about, okay, where are we? If you remember back when we started, we talked about doing a $5 million reduction, but our worst case scenario was actually being $10 million short. And we knew we had the reserves to carry us if that was the case, if we got the $5 million reduction done. And I think what Virgil will really illustrate is that between us getting more in the state aid support than, you know, we had put in our worst case scenario illustration that we worked with, and then getting the $5 million, you know, or, you know, close to that $5 million in reduction identified, that we're actually going to be in pretty decent shape, and probably are not going to have to come back next year and try and figure out where we're going to come up with another $5 million to cut. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Virgil. He'll talk about some of the details.
Thanks, Matt. I only regret that I don't have a greater than life-size poster that Mr. Petch could stand up here for about a half hour, no, 5 minutes kind of thing. So this is an updated version of what you've seen before. So as we walked through this process together back in November and then in February, we presented this information, and as Matt alluded, of course, you know, my strategy in trying to deal with these large numbers and these very unpredictable moving parts is to talk about things in worst case scenario. And then when that doesn't happen, we're less disappointed and we have more options. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. So we did indeed get an increase, not a decrease in state aid. And the reason for that is that I was extremely aggressive on what I could put into the state for our poverty allowance. And our poverty allowance is something that we have to apply for every year. And so I shot the moon, and we were successful in getting the largest amount that we possibly could get. So that's appropriate when you think about the demographics of our community and our kids that we're dealing with and the struggles and issues that we have. So those are resources the state makes available. It's my job to maximize them, and so that's what we did. It's not really any other way to say it. And so that's why that number, if you look at column E on this document, under 2024 projected, that's a $5.3 million increase in state aid from the year prior. So that would be awesome if that was, you know, it's like, hey, just go spend $5 million more. You know, it's a more complicated environment than that. There's always a prior year correction, and this was the only number that was set in our previous dialogue, and that was the $460,000 you see in that column there. And you are you seeing? Are they seeing your screen or my screen? They're seeing my screen, so I didn't know if you were seeing my little arrow. I was just trying to point on. And so then row 6, the $2,222,000. So the first three numbers I mentioned there, those are known. We know that those are what the numbers are. They're not in question. That's why they have the green achieved on the column I. And then the next three here are all projections. And so it's important to know that even at this point in time, you know, early May, you know, we just don't know these numbers because, for one, assessed valuation doesn't get certified to us until August 20th. So none of us know that number. All we can do is say it'll probably be higher than the 5% average. It probably will be lower than the 15.7 record-setting increase last year. Tell me what number you want me to put in there. So I just, again, overstate the worst-case scenario, understate the... you know, on the revenue side of things, so 5%, because that's what average says should come in, kind of thing. And then there'll be more information on this next item as we go in farther into our budget processing for next year, but there's a big change, refinement, clarification in the QCPUF fund, where we can now use that for safety and security issues. And so we'll be bringing forth a information item next month that will propose increasing that through a bond referendum that the board can do through their own vote of additional 1 cent increase on that levy. It's 2 cents right now. It would go to 3 cents and go out for 10 years. And so that would be anticipated at this point in time that would be a shift and not an increase overall to the taxpayer. We don't know for sure if we can achieve that. That's the intent going into the budgeting process for next year. So that's why it'd be $350,000 decrease in the general fund. That money would then go to the qualified fund and then pay that debt as we go forward. So that's a shift, but it's a decrease in general fund. So that's why you see it here. And then the $2.6 million, if you take the totals on both of those column D and E, you see there's a gray cell there at 6.7. And you also see that exact same number in column D under the special ed expenditures. If you remember last year as I was coming on board, I originally kind of was going around telling people, well, when do taxes go down? And the funny answer was never. And then it was like, well, yeah, but they do when the state pumps in all kinds of money into special ed reimbursement. And so kind of at the last minute, we just said, well, for the first time in 22 years, I think it was, we lowered our levy from the maximum. And so if you remember, we're at 94 cents in the general fund. So To continue that, I believe we can go down another 4 cents in the general fund to 90 cents and achieve what I think the state is trying to say to us, which is lower your levy dollar for what we're giving you now in special ed reimbursement, because it's replacement revenue. So you don't need it locally because we're giving it to you from state resources. That's great in theory. We still have to do the business of the district kind of thing again. So that's just kind of where we're at. That's again, as we build the budget for next school year, that's the intent. It's not a guarantee. So I want to be very clear with you as a board and the public that might be listening that we can't guarantee we're going to go down 4 cents on the levy, but we're certainly looking very hard at it, and we think that's the intent, and if things work out, given what we have in front of us, we might be able to achieve that. And so that's the revenue side of things. So in essence, all those pluses and minuses, we basically net $5 million increase in revenue. Again, nice day, good to be us, but we have expenses, right? We have higher expenses, and so that's what the remaining part is. I won't go ad nauseum on all these because you've seen them. These have not changed very much, if at all, from our previous dialogue. Really, the only refinement is, I think, the cash reserve piece with as I go through with the Facility and Finance Committee every month, our revenue from the federal reimbursements is caught up finally from our spending. Normally, we have spend the money, wait some period of time and get it back, and so it's always you spend more than you get. But because of the timing of RR3 or ESSERS 3, we're in the exact opposite, where we're now getting more money from previous years spent than what we're spending this year because it's shutting down. RR3 we're done with it at the end of the year. And so we're going to build back our reserve. So I can take that reserve, hey, we need to add to it. Instead of being $2 million again this year, I think we only need $1 million. We might not even need that, and that plays into what we can do with the general fund kind of thing. And so those rest of those numbers, basically, between the increased cost because of staff costs in the environment that we're in, rather mild, 6% overall cost kind of thing, at least from a school perspective. And then the increased costs that we're bringing back on, you've heard a number of things mentioned this evening that are coming back onto the general fund, and that's what some of those other numbers down below that we've talked about. The only number that changed really is that 1.2 is up from, it was less than $1 million prior, and so that's still an estimate kind of thing. So believe it or not, it's amazing when you get to play with a spreadsheet until you like the numbers. $4.7 million kind of like is now the mark, and if you scroll down to the bottom, then what did we identify as cuts? 4.669 and some change, right? So aren't we good? Don't we all feel good about how we did? I think that's an A++ with a smiley, scratchy, something you like, whatever flavor makes you happy. So, there was one add back kind of thing in the cuts, and that was already talked about, so there's not a lot there. The cuts were painful. They weren't easy. They weren't fun. Everybody participated at all levels. There's things we aren't going to do next year that we've done for decades, but I can't recommend at this point that we add anything back from what we've talked about as cuts. So they're basically all in process moving forward with those to be reduced. So I think I'm done. I'll turn it over back to Matt, and he can close and answer all your questions.
No, I can't answer all the questions. That's your part. So, I do think that Virgil talked a little bit about the work that went into those reductions, and I think it does bear thanking our staff, our administrators for the work that went into that, because it wasn't fun, and it was hard, and it was painful, and they did a great job of embracing this is where we're at, and this is what we've got to do, and they got it done. And so we're thankful that where things look like they are right now, we're not going to have to be doing that again next year. So with that, I guess any questions anyone would have about where we're at, what?
Mr. Hawley.
I have a couple questions. So, first of all, again, thanks to our staff for all the hard work they did. We know that this was a tough process, even for us, in the discussions we had. And thanks to Virgil for getting creative with the numbers, with what you submitted for reimbursement. Is that something that we're going to be able to, with what you know now versus what we've done in the past, something we'll be able to submit higher on again in years to come?
Well, let me just restate your question, make sure, are you talking specifically on the revenue side, what I did with the poverty plan
Yes, sir.
and that kind of thing? We'll be able to maintain that, we will have nothing, we hit the ceiling, there's nothing more to gain.
Okay.
So there's nothing on the vine to harvest in the future. We can maintain that level, barring major funding changes, and they can do that at any time they want. There might be a special set. So our environment's still very unknown, and that's why all these things are hard to say finished until they were right there, till we're at September and we're approving the budget. These numbers are probably still in play, but yeah, there's nothing more in that category. So there's no golden egg waiting to be found for next year or future years.
Sure. Yeah. That helps. And one more question. We've talked about this in committee. I know it's not necessarily on your spreadsheet. Several of us board members have been contacted by folks in the community about the budget cuts and how that's affecting our SRO program. I know we had an update on that this week. Would one of you give an explanation as to what's going on with that program and where it is at?
I can. It might shock you to know that that is totally two different things, because there's zero impact to the SRO program because of budget cuts. So
And that's why I'm asking for the
key,
clarification.
That's the soundbite I hope you were looking for. And so easy answer is it's all about process and prior decisions and the shift that we did. So we, the district, as a strategic move, when the city said, hey, we're short of staff, we can't give you a fifth SRO, we said, we got you covered. We're going to hire a former police officer, so Wes Jaden. So those monies were shifted from, instead of sending them to the city for a fifth SRO, we kept them and hired our own staff member. And so we're spending as much as we've ever spent on SROs. I don't think the city got the concept or got the message or the understanding that that was then not something we were just going to walk away from, because we would have to walk away from that position, that person, to then bring back the fifth SRO. So that's what's going on with that program. With some of the moves and things, we did talk about that at the DELT level. And really, from my lens, what I think I heard my colleagues say is, I think we have a bigger question that we have to ask about safety and security, make sure we're getting everything we can for the dollars we're spending. And it's a bigger question than just replacing what was there, because now it's available. Now, if I said that wrong, my boss is going to correct me.
I think you said it right. And again, I think when Virgil talked about that potential move of 1 cent from the general fund to the QC Puff fund, part of what that does is it says we're going to address some of our safety and security concerns through the QC Puff. And then, ideally we get that 1 cent in the QC Puff and able to drop 1 cent off the general fund. But, and again, going back to some of our district leadership team discussion, what we may come back and look at is, if we truly feel like we need that additional SRO, we've now shifted some of the safety concerns into the QC Puff fund, and that would then leave potentially the ability to do a little bit more in the general fund. And certainly it wouldn't take a full cent by any means to replace that SRO, but it does give us some flexibility within that general fund to make a decision along those lines if that's the direction we end up deciding we need to go.
And I think you'd said that shift of 1 cent to the QC Puff fund is something newer this year that we can, is that right? That we couldn't do
it is.
before
Legislatively,
for safety,
that
but
was
we can now.
changed this year. We probably could have done it before. There was a provision in there for life safety codes. So depending on how the bonding attorneys would look at what you were proposing to do, whether it could fit as a life safety code or not, you may have been able to do some of those pieces before, but now the legislature actually designated that one of the things that you can use QC Puff funding for is school security. And so that's a listed piece in QC Puff going forward. So that would definitely clear up some of the questions that might have been there before.
And I appreciate the clarification from not only the board but the public, because I mean, I think it was a little bit difficult for us to understand as well, and people thought these were tied together. So thank you very much.
Ms. Albers.
So I know previously with the QC Puff fund, we used it for some ADA compliance, right? Was that the only thing that it could be used for previously?
No. It could be used for ADA compliance. It could be used for asbestos removal. Could be used for mold abatement. So if you had a mold issue, you could use QC Puff for that.
Which we did.
At one point in time, indoor air quality was a part of what you could use QC Puff for. They took that out, but then when COVID hit, they kind of let that air quality piece kind of slip back in there, because sometimes air quality fell under that life safety code with the COVID piece. So you could, again, it all comes down to what would your bond attorney say, yeah, that fits the intent of the law.
And what does QC Puff stand for?
Qualified Capital Purpose Undertaking Fund.
Okay, well done.
Okay. Tough questions. Anything else we can answer for you? All right.
If there's no one else, I'd like to really quickly just say I want to thank both Matt Fisher and Virgil Harden for your leadership through this process. This was no easy task. It would have been easy to have been doing it by a top-down approach by saying this is what we're cutting, but no, they included all the building leaders. And not only did they decrease expenses, but I think they also got some additional benefits by strengthening some communication channels amongst the schools and the school leaders themselves. So thank you, Matt, and thank you, Virgil, for your leadership on that. Okay, item number 6.7, classified wage increase for 2024-25. Dr. Kohler.
Good evening. I am here to talk about the wage increase for classified staff for next year, the 24-25 school year. And I just want to start by going back to last year to tell you what we are not doing for the coming year. So last year in 23-24, for this year, we went in and redid the entire classified salary schedule. We are not touching the salary schedule moving forward for the next year. All we're doing is changing the wage. We are not changing the structure itself. And this is really just so that we can comply with that minimum wage increase that we need to be at by 2026, and then also recognize our employees that are supporting students and staff throughout the district. And we really want to attract and retain. That was really our goal last year of redoing the entire structure, and we want to continue with that. So the changes since we have implemented that, first of all, the number of applications we have received has increased, and I've had administrators tell me consistently that the quality of applicants they're receiving has really improved, and they're very pleased with the choices that they've been having. Very few times have we had to reopen a position because of lack of quality applicants, so that has been very nice. Turnover is down as well, 3%. It's still a concern. I would say a lot of that is because some of our positions, 9 months, it turns into a different position for other people when they find one, but also I'm hearing kind of across the board in other areas that's a concern as well. Not just isolated to education. So what we did looking forward to this next year is gathered information from the Nebraska Department of Labor and then compared that to our current wages throughout the district, and just looked for any areas where we needed to make that improvement. So there were some areas that we saw that did stand out that we wanted to address. First of all, the trades positions, there were differences there, and we needed to make some increases at our district level for that. There were also in nutrition services, we have servers, and there are some head servers who needed a responsibility adjustment. They have more that they do for that position as a head server, and they needed that adjustment. And then also an additional position is added so that it encourages paraprofessionals. It works towards being a registered behavior technician, and that's a certification, and they specialize in behavior analysis. And it's a certification they receive, and then when they are placed into some specific programs where that behavior analysis is really an advantage for us, that's at Skills, CBI, Indra House, ELS. We have a position that's a behavior support para. Those positions, it's a huge advantage for the students and for the others around them to have that skill. So that would be a different position at a different wage. Overall, I brought two numbers. I'm asking for the second. The first one shows what it would be for movement. So as staff moves from the current step this year to their step for next year, what that movement would look like, plus the 2.75% increase. And then the second is the movement plus the 2.75% increase plus the market adjustment for those positions I just talked through. And then the cost is there for each of them. You're going to have to read through the lines there. Sorry, I shouldn't have messed with it. Right over $1 million. $1,179,920. And this is information tonight, and I'll come back for action in June. Any questions for me?
Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Kohler. Action item 7.1, approval proposed changes for the 2024-25 student parent handbook. Dr. Dexter.
And I went through kind of change by change last month, and just if you have any more questions or guidance.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the changes to the student parent handbook.
I make a motion to approve the changes to the student parent handbook for the 2024-2025 school year.
Second by Mr. Helinski. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Oops. We're going to go.
So I just said to Lindsay, we got to get back because we're going to be voting.
We just had no discussion and proceeding to the vote.
We're voting, Lindsay.
We could ask Dr. Dexter some hard questions.
Yeah.
Yes, if you prefer to ask Dr. Dexter. Okay, so we have had a motion to accept and a second, and now we asked for discussion. Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Okay, item 7.2, GISH Science Resource. Dr. Dexter.
And this was presented as info earlier, and due to the need for summer work, we're asking that the proposal be approved as action.
Do you have any questions? Mr. Hawley.
Just making sure I understand. I believe you said the cost on this was around 100,000? Yep. And we had 300,000 earmarked for science curriculum. Will that other 200,000 just stay earmarked for years to come?
Yeah, right. And so we'll have this for 5 years, and Virgil and Tony work together on being able to kind of, this is not the appropriate word, but bank, so that when that comes around again, we'll have the funds to do that. Good question.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the purchase of the Cognity Science Resources to support instruction at GISH.
I make a motion to approve the purchase of the Cognity Science Resources to support instruction at GISH.
Second.
Second by Mr. Garcia Mendez. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 7.3, Title I, Yes We Can, Professional Learning. Dr. Palmer.
Hello, just presented the information earlier and just asking for your approval tonight, just based on the 30-day window that we had to support the cost of the purchase agreement.
Do you have any questions? Dr. Palmer. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion to approve the contract with Solutions Tree and use the Title I funds as designated in the request.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Well, I know you're all disappointed to not have new policies to cover in the information, but we were kind of at a point where actually our goal is to be within 5 years, having reviewed all of the policies, so that no policy is more than 5 years beyond a review, and we're actually at that point, and actually looking at the policies that are at the 4-year point. There really aren't too many that are 4 years or more away from review. So knowing that we'll get a whole new slew of policies in June from the attorneys as a follow-up to the legislative action, I proposed to the policy committee that we take a month off, and they didn't put up too much of a fight. So sorry to disappoint the crew that we didn't have new policies to look at tonight. But we do have the ones that we looked at last month to go ahead and approve. The first of those being 2210, which is board organizational meeting. This really just goes through the process of opening the meeting and then electing the officers. And there really were no proposed changes to this, so this would simply be an approval on review.
Any questions for Mr. Fisher? This time I'd entertain, excuse me, a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 2210, board organizational meeting as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, the second policy that we have up for review tonight is 2220, responsibilities of board officers. Again, there are no proposed changes in this, so it would simply be a approval of a review of this policy. Questions on that one?
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 2220, responsibilities of board officers as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, the final one that we have for approval tonight is 2480, public participation at board meetings. This one will be a lot more exciting because we've got changes here. Not that they amount to much. Actually, the initial policy, there is nothing there, but there is, when we get down here, the document that we use in conjunction with this policy, the procedure for requesting to address the board. There was a proposed change there, and that was simply, rather than having the direction to be to present the request to address the board, to the superintendent, or any board member, it would say to the designated staff member. So that, we've always had someone who was collecting those, so that would be, I guess, wording that we would propose changing there. And then the other part of this policy that exists currently is policy that was put in place for addressing the board during the pandemic. And since we are beyond that now, would suggest that we delete that part of the policy. So those are the changes proposed for that policy. Any questions on that?
I would entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion to approve policy 2480, public participation at board meetings as presented.
Second by Ms. Malton. Discussion. Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Reports. Student representative report, Ms. Adeline Beltran.
Good evening. Before I start my last report ever, I would like to share how grateful I am to have been able to hold this position. Being the student board representative has opened many opportunities for me and has helped improve things like my public speaking abilities and confidence. Working with the board and attending the monthly meetings has given me so much insight on the school district and the way it operates. This position has given me a platform to share thoughts and ideas that the student body has relied on me to give back to you all, even though it may not have been the easiest at times. Once again, I'm so honored to have held this position and to have been able to work with the school board members. Starting off with athletics, baseball senior Cohen Nelson became the 5th Islander to achieve his 100th career strikeout, and on their senior night, they defeated Lincoln Pius X with going 3-1. Track sophomore Celia McCoy broke the girls' GIPS track record for the 300-meter hurdles with a time of 45:14. And it was actually 45 flat, but because it was like a handheld time, they had to add like a time to adjust, like because of the wind and stuff. Unified track, they hosted their first ever home unified only track meet. National High School Strength Coaches Association nominated Brianna Kuchka and Rayleigh Ostermeyer for Female All-Americans. And for boys, Hunter Hanquist and Jacob Albers. Boys golf, they won the GI Cup this week, and many spring sports have come to an end. I think state track is next week, and we had lots of qualifiers. Activities, NCPA, they had their 15th cohort of graduates, and 18 seniors will be attending the University of Nebraska-Lincoln debt-free due to this program. The Academy of Technical Sciences had 7 students sign on for community apprenticeships, and the Academy of Medical Sciences and Academy of Engineering ended the year with a showcase of capstone projects. Each student spent hours over the school year job shadowing with a Pathway industry partner and was able to share their experiences and gained knowledge through these presentations. Junior Owen Williams was named the Nebraska winner of the 2024 essay contest on moral courage, and he will also be next year's student board representative. Yesterday was the last day for seniors, and today was class day, and the class officers and I were able to present to our class to finish out the school year. We had a couple of games and activities for everyone. It was pretty fun to just have everyone together for almost the last time. And we also inducted the new class officers for the 2024-2025 school year. So class president will be Jace Jones, Vice President Sydney Obermeyer, Secretary Kenya Calderon Corona, and Student Board Representative Owen Williams. And lastly, graduation will be held on Sunday, May 12th at the Heartland Event Center. And doors will open at 1 and the ceremony will begin at 2. That's all.
All right. Well, Addie, we have a little present for you here. Thank you for everything you've done for us. Okay, item 8.2, Superintendent Report.
Well, since I get the mic next, I'll add my thank you to Addie as well. As not only has she been a representative here with the board, she's also been our student advisory group at the high school, and certainly has contributed in that area as well. It's been a real pleasure to have the chance to work with you and see your growth, and that's one of those rewarding things that we get to do in education. So we certainly wish you the best beyond Sunday, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday. So she covered most of the good stuff. So I would certainly echo the mention that she made of the Nebraska career. What is it? NCPA, Nebraska College Prep Academy. There we go. Such a great program, providing really a debt-free college education for those students who take that on, and it's a 4-year commitment throughout high school. They're working with that group throughout, and so it's just really a great program, and we were one of the very first schools that were a part of that, and so I think it's great to have those opportunities for our students. The apprenticeship signing the other day, that was another one of those really great things that we're doing. We were the first high school apprentice program in the state, and we're still, I'm trying to remember what the number was that Mr. Hawley shared. I think there's like 19 high school apprentices out there, or maybe it's 23 that are out there right now across the state, and 19 of them are ours. So we're still really leading the way in terms of placing students in true apprenticeships. And so I think that's another of those great things that we're doing. And then Eddie mentioned the capstone presentations. Again, if you ever get the chance to go to those, do. One I remember the other day with the engineering group, couldn't tell you the student's name, but was talking about his, and he was very passionate about a seatbelt design that he felt like was an improvement over current seatbelts that are in automobiles, and how much safer his design was, and lower cost. And so it's just amazing what the students are able to do. Along those lines, I've also, we're in that concert season again, and so I've been to concerts all over the place, but one I wanted to point out is the other night at the band concert, the fine arts departments wrote a grant and received, I think it was $17,000 grant to do a project that included both the visual and performing arts. And they had put together a visual creation, and then put together an original composition. One of the students did an actual original score for the band, and you think about writing a song. Well, this isn't just writing a song. This is putting all the instrumentation that has to go into a true composition, and it was very good. It was very impressive to see what our students are able to do. So had the chance on Tuesday to go down to Lincoln to be a part of the annual stakeholders meeting for the Exarban Foundation. Their big emphasis right now is internships, and so again, it was one of the schools that was talked about was us, and the work that we're doing with Wayne and the internship program that they're kicking off here, with the first group of students coming to, they spend 3 years at Wayne, and then their 4th year actually is in the community. They've been doing this with Norfolk for a couple years now, and our first group of students will be here in Grand Island. They actually provide the housing. They've got housing secured downtown for those students to come in, and the housing is paid for. They're in a paid internship, and the college gives them a scholarship that pays for their, course costs through that final year. So another great opportunity, I think, for students. And it isn't just for our students. That one actually would be available to anyone, but it's a great opportunity for our community to have those students placed here in Grand Island. And ultimately, one of the areas that they are going to be placing students in is education. And so it hopefully will really, give us opportunity to bring more students here to student teach, and really it's a year-long experience. So ideally, it probably will mean that they will get their local substitute certificate, be doing some subbing, a lot like the apprentice program that we have right now, where we bring them in, match them up with a master teacher, and they spend some of their time there, and then they also do subbing in different areas. And then ultimately, their student teaching experience would be a part of that. So that's exciting stuff. Beyond that, just wanted to mention the staffing, and as far as where we're at, because that's certainly an area that we're spending a lot of time on right now. We're meeting with elementary principals tomorrow to talk about a staffing plan there, because our biggest area of need right now, outside of special education, and we're no different than every school in the state seeking to find and fill all of their special ed positions, both the classroom positions and then those specialists in school psychs and speech and all of the other areas. There's a shortage everywhere. But we are short 12, from an ideal setting, 12 elementary teachers right now, and Dr. Kohler has been working diligently with Dr. Palmer, Dr. Dexter, Dr. Stevens. All of them have been working, and Dr. Dahl has put together a really good tool for helping them to analyze where our class numbers are right now, and try and figure out, well, if we move this teacher here or there, what would that do to class numbers? And so they've been spending a lot of time with that, and tomorrow, Dr. Kohler has been meeting individually with elementary principals to talk about, well, here's what this looks like, and here's what we're maybe thinking here. And of course, there's always that, well, don't do that to me, don't do that in my school. So at some point in time, you really have to bring them all together so they can look at the whole picture, and be able to think about, okay, I'm not thrilled about this happening, in my building, but I do see that overall this is the right direction for us to go. And so that's been a challenging piece. The good news, from the secondary side of things, we're probably in as good a place as we've been in a number of years. At this point in time, we're short one newcomer teacher at the high school, and I think 2 science teachers. I think there's actually offers out there that might cover the 2 science teachers. It's just a matter of waiting to see if those offers get accepted or not. And then we're just short 1 math teacher at bar. So otherwise, at that point, we're just about fully staffed in the secondary level. So feel good about that. And unfortunately, the thing that's a little bit different than, the environment would have been in the past is, at this point in time, there's not going to be much movement. There's just, people that are under contract now are probably not going to get out of those contracts. So that really doesn't open up the opportunity for, in-state movement. Now, there's always the opportunity, and we've actually had some decent success, bringing in some teachers from outside the state. And we're continuing to explore the international teaching program. So that's I guess, a quick rundown on where we're at with staffing, and that's probably, if we were gonna put a concern in my mind right now about where we're at, that's probably my biggest concern is trying to get those things ironed out. So any questions that anyone would have for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to subject 9, executive session for the purpose of real estate, because it's in the best interest of the public to discuss this matter in closed session. Rationales, the board will convene into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate. At this time, I would entertain a motion for the recommendation for the board to convene to executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate.
I make a motion for the board to convene to executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion. Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Motion passed for the board to convene into executive session Okay. We are returning from executive session for the purpose of real estate. We convened into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate, excuse me. The official time is now 8:11. At this time, I would take a motion to reconvene back to regular session.
I make a motion to reconvene from executive session.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sykes. Discussion, seeing none. May vote. Motion passes. The official time is now 8:11. We are back into regular session. This was an action session, so at this time, I would accept any motions at this time.
I make a motion to accept the bid for the Wyandotte property as presented.
Second by Ms. Wilson. All right. Boy, this is what we did. We went around the horn, didn't we? All right. Discussion. Seeing none, we may proceed to once again, the motion is to accept the bid on the Wyandotte property as presented. You may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Okay. Next regular Board of Education meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 13th, 2024. At this time, I call the meeting adjourned.